So for the past week and a half or so, we have all witnessed the Hollywood bubble, the film industry, if you will, popped just like that, and everything beginning to backfire, whether it had to do with their ideology, everything to do with DEI getting shoehorned into every single studio out there, all of its actors, actresses, executive producers, writers, directors, I can go on all day. They are all beginning to go into a phase of panic. They are all beginning to go into this phase of attacking their fan bases. Of course, everything to do with different brands that they own and the fandoms that are connected to those brands. And it's not getting any easier for them. Now, focusing on the whole Robert De Niro situation, there's been a lot of things going on with him in the past couple of weeks, and especially within the last week. We'll have a lot more to discuss about this today. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So Robert De Niro has not been going through a good 7 days, and a lot of this has to do with Warner Brothers. Now, we talked about this lightly on and off about what's been going on over there after he was fired from numerous projects, by the way, that were supposed to revive his role or roles as a mob boss, alright? Back into the whole mafia role in the film industry. And this is where things begin to get very shaky as he lost millions upon millions of dollars, and the exact margin, alright, is actually quite shocking. Now, let's get into this further. Now, one thing about De Niro is that we know that he's very self-absorbed. He is a very selfish individual, especially of the fact that he drags his politics into his acting career and to those that have followed him. That's exactly why he's losing followers. He's losing fans in droves, week by week. And that's number one rule. If you're an actor or an actress, you don't drag politics into your career. You just don't do it. Now, with the film industry already beginning to head into freefall mode as multiple major studios are making last-minute decisions after the Hollywood bubble popped, one monumental development going on now involves more to do with Robert De Niro and the recent behavior that he displayed after getting fired from Warner Brothers for 2 major film projects that were aimed to actually revive his mob boss roles. As it turns out, WB, Warner Brothers, fired Robert De Niro not just based on his recent comments when it came to his view of politics, but also it had to do with the last-minute outlandish negotiations and creative differences that he displayed as well. For starters, De Niro recently lost a total of $35 to $40 million from Warner Brothers. Each film was going to have a payout of around $17.5 to $18 million plus other miscellaneous payouts. As of now, De Niro is already challenging the Warner Brothers studio executives, and his behavior was best described as so inflammatory that it spread throughout the entirety of Warner Brothers headquarters. Already, De Niro is blaming the studio executives for acting in a biased way toward his views on politics. And De Niro had multiple heated arguments, as it turns out, with David Zaslav, the Warner Brothers CEO, for firing him from these 2 mob boss films. One film in particular, for those of you that need to know, he was going to be the main character, much like in the film Casino. On the other hand, the other mob movie was going to place De Niro as a major supporting character. Now, De Niro's recent political statements not only created a massive shakeup behind the scenes at WB, but De Niro was also surprisingly demanding a higher payout between both films to be bumped up to, get this, $60 million combined, instead of $40 million. His recent comments that he made public, however, were described to be the deal breaker for the WB studio executives, as they are trying to retain any of their image that's left and don't want to risk the loss of customers and potential new customers to their upcoming brands that they own. Now, already De Niro is warning the WB heads of taking some form of action in a legal sense, and more details on that will be understood in the coming days, so stay tuned on that as this development progresses. However, De Niro his recent meltdown behind the scenes not only created a ton of issues with the WB CEO, but also now other studios have learned about the whole WB situation and his recent behavior that occurred at WB. Studios like Universal and Sony are already looking to never hire De Niro again or at all, or even consider him for a role as long as he remains as an active actor in the industry. Now guys, before I move on, let me just say one thing about Robert De Niro. The fact that he has the attitude and the goal to say, I don't want 40 million, I want 60 million for these two movies, and that was the beginning of the shakeup between De Niro and the WB heads over there. But the real deal breaker, as we discussed twice, had a lot to do with his political statements, his view on politics, and dragging that into his career. The biggest mistake of all time, by the way. I mean, we know that his issues predate 2024 and 2023, there's no doubt about that, but it most definitely got worse, hit an all-time low the past 2.5 years. And even more so in the past week, after he made more comments. It's not helping him one bit. People like himself, Rachel Zegler, Jimmy Kimmel, George Clooney, they don't seem to ever learn from their mistakes, do they? Now, Robert De Niro, yet again, I don't think that he really deserves any kind of a role anymore after his overall behavior toward the general public, calling all these different people in the country names and labeling others, as this or that. A lot of name calling, a lot of blame game train going on right now by Robert De Niro behind the scenes toward the studio executives. He's now blaming David Zaslav. He's now blaming the executives as them being very biased towards his views of real-world issues and politics. That's another big growing problem for De Niro right now that he can't seem to actually get a sense of reality with. Now, to continue on here, De Niro is demanding the WB studio heads to reverse their action of firing him right now after losing millions of dollars, as we said, 40 million, and is demanding a resolution to this situation and to be rehired to these projects as soon as this December. If not, he is going to move forward with a legal case toward the WB executives and its CEO. And it's only creating more issues and setbacks. Already, WB can't find the proper recast to take over De Niro's role. One film was already cancelled, the other remains. So here's the other thing about Robert De Niro. This man, I don't believe he deserves to go back into the whole mob boss role. I mean, he's up there in age, number one. Number two, I think it's so been there, done that type of thing. It grows old after a while. It didn't really work out well on Netflix with The Irishman, and I made a very brief comment about this last week. I really was not convinced when it came down to the Irishman movie. It just did not work for him, and it really was not all that great of a movie as far as I saw things. That's just my opinion. Agree or disagree with that if you will. But De Niro, once again, alright, everything is boiling down to him only getting rom-com roles now, or comedy roles, or just pure nonsense movie roles that bomb at the box office, and it's not going to look good for the rest of his career, especially for this legacy that he's trying to latch onto, because that's what it really sounds like. He's trying to latch onto a legacy. He's trying to latch onto the big hit classics that he starred in. Godfather Part 2, and Casino, Goodfellas, I mean, just to name a few there, by the way. Those are like the big three, especially others, but again, I think he's way over his head, and this is the type of behavior that is not to be dealt with when it comes down to studio executives. I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.